Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nidus Anarchy series. I'm your host Adam, CIO and co-founder of Nidus, and today I am here with David Hirschfeld of Tekyz, and I'm really excited to have you because we've already been having a conversation up to this point just about AI and where the world is. So I can already tell you this is going to be a fun one. So David, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time and really looking forward to hear more about kind of what you're doing in the realm of AI and ML.
Yeah, and thanks, Adam. I really appreciate you having me on the show. And yeah, we had to literally stop, the conversation, the pre-conversation, because we could have gone on for like an hour, and then never done the show. Yeah, and I've been in software for 35 plus years, and I've worked with tons of startups. For the last 17 years, I've had my company Techies, and we do custom software development.
Nice.
So I've worked with lots of startups and lots of scale ups. And what I found now, since AI has basically, landed, because AI has been around for a while, and I was playing
Right.
around with TensorFlow when TensorFlow first came out. I think it was 2013 or something like, in that time frame.
Okay.
Um, when that was released, I started building machine learning models that way.
Oh wow.
Uh, I wasn't any major heavy commercial thing, but I just was learning, played, fascinated me.
Right,
The
playing around
idea
with
of,
it, figuring it out.
yeah, it was consumable neural networks at that point, right? So,
Hmm.
and it was more than just the neural networks. But then, of course, things evolved really fast after that. And then this concept of the large language models came out, I don't know exactly when that was, 2017 or 18,
Hmm.
but nobody knew about this, right? But that was when they first started to experiment with getting natural language out of this. And then I read an article from in Scientific America about a year, 9 months or a year before ChatGPT came out, and the article was written by OpenAI about
Oh,
OpenAI. And
wow.
that really woke me up about how much the state of the art has evolved. And so we started kind of embracing it at that point. And then of course ChatGPT comes out, and now AI is consumable by everybody.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing that was so dramatic to me about this movement is that you have one AI that basically turns everything into words and language. So it turns video, it turns audio, it turns any kind of pattern recognition, images, music, everything becomes a language.
Hmm.
And so you've got this one model that actually can interpret and produce content in all of these different media, all looking at everything as just a word and making the next prediction of that word, translating it all into a language. Um, so instead of having to have all these different ML models, machine learning models, which was prior to that, now you don't really. You have RAG augmented, augmented models,
Hmm.
right? Where you're still informing the large language model, like an OpenAI or Claude or whatever you're using. You're informing it with this vector database that you've built around content that's specialized in the thing that you
Right.
want it to focus on. But you're
Now, for your
still,
clients, do you focus more on the RAG side or fine tuning?
um, it's both. Yeah,
Okay.
right. I don't know that I focus on one or the other. It depends on what the problem statement is. So, I mean, if we can do it with fine tuning, we'll do that. But if it's a more sophisticated specialty, then we're going to build a RAG model for it,
Mm.
because fine tuning has certain level of limitation
Yeah.
in terms of how expert you can make the fine tuning model. So with a RAG model, you can really control how it's informing the LLM, and
Right.
restrict the LLM in terms of what it's going to talk about, its level of expertise, and build a lot more parameters around it. So yeah, it's a blend of both. And then of course, the big thing for us is not only the RAG but also the agentic workflow.
I was just going to
And
say, are using agentic workflows.
oh yeah, yeah. We've been using them and developing expertise around that over the last year, really.
Okay.
But really, especially in the last few months, because it's becoming so much easier.
And are you using any
to
systems like Crew AI or any of the open source systems, or have you developed your own for developing agents? Like how do you introduce agentic models into your LLMs for clients?
well, um, we were building our own. I don't honestly, I can't tell you what tools that we're using for the agentic workflows
Hmm.
because my developers are using it and implementing it. I don't remember what the current, but we are definitely using
Well,
tools to help us with the
you're
agentic
following
workflow.
business rule number one: hire people smarter than yourself.
Well, I mean, oh, that is my mantra too. If they're not smarter than me, I'm not going to hire them. And if somebody that works for me is hiring somebody, they better be smarter than them,
Right.
right? Or don't waste your time because otherwise you end up having to
Do it
prop them up
yourself.
and support them.
Yeah.
And right, exactly. You can't relinquish control and know you're going to actually. So my job, if I'm building my teams correctly, is to sweep things out of the way of all these people that are so much better than me at what they're doing, right? And just keep the impediments out of the way, and also build scaffolding for them. So all the automation, automated systems internally, procedures and protocols, so that they can be critical thinkers and be creative and build, but still do it in a way so we can still deal with all of our compliance requirements and standardization and all sleep at night because things that are being built are secure, the vulnerability is controlled, right? And that we're accountable for everything we're doing so we can communicate easily about where we are and where we're going with customers on a daily, weekly basis. So
Nice.
that's my job.
Cool.
Used to be
So
my
what's
job. Yeah, go
so
ahead.
for techies, what's kind of your main business? Like what's your main kind of client and business that you go after?
My main business is basically doing uh, custom software development for startups and scale ups.
Okay.
And some of these are what I call recovery projects, where we'll take it over from another development company where they might have started with a company that was inexpensive and but then they realized that they struggled to get things done. Something that was supposed to be 3 months and a year and a half
Oh,
later, they still have something very buggy and it's not done. And we love those projects because people recognize how different we are from who they've worked with in the past.
right.
In fact, if you go to my website, you'll see at the top it says hyper exceptional software development team. That's literally the branding statement at the top of it. And when I talk to somebody, I say, I don't expect you to believe that we're exceptional. I expect you to ask me for evidence what we do that's exceptional. And I love to show people because we do things that there are a small number of teams that do these things consistently like we do. There are other
Mhm.
teams, but it's just few. And the reason there's not a lot is because it's hard to build all the systems in place, to develop the culture, to create the automation, to support the process, and to develop your own set of skills internally about how you continually improve and deliver. Like, for example, because I that's a lot of words again. Like when we do project estimates, we break those project estimates down into a tremendous amount of detail. And we do this on our own dime when it's a new customer, and it's a lot of work. And when I talk with other development firms, because I like to network with other development firms because I get insights from them. And if I can help and coach them, I'm happy to coach them in terms of building culture and teams. And they say, yeah, we do really good job on estimating too. And they say, tell me about your estimating. And I said, let me just show you. And then I show them, and then they always say, oh no, we're not. Our estimates are nothing like yours because because we want to be accurate in our estimates, which
Do you
requires
encourage
us
your
to
staff
really
to use
understand.
AI for during development with development, like to augment it?
Yeah, yeah, well, yes, we are doing that more and more. In fact, I have a big team meeting next week where I'm going to start to really lean on the team to get outside the box in terms of how they're using AI.
Mhm.
We've had several of these meetings. This one's going to be even more so just because the state of the art is moving so darn fast. Um,
It's
it's
crazy. It's
just
like as soon as you think
like,
you've got like some new tool comes out, this is amazing, it's mind blowing, it's going to change the world. And then 2 weeks
right.
later, it's obsolete because something else came out that replaced it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. In that exact example, what you just said, I was 3 weeks ago, a tool called Bolt, 3 or 4 weeks
Yes.
ago it come out.
Actually, I
Right.
just did a demo on that tool.
Okay. Right. And I was playing with it and I thought, wow, this is amazing. But like, there's points which it just really struggles, as you're trying to get things, especially
Fine
when I
tune it,
added a database
right?
behind it, right?
Yeah.
And then I was in a podcast interview with another CTO, and I was telling him about Bolt and how it just like the world is changing really fast, and he said, "Yeah, have you tried Replit?" REPL.IT.
Replit,
And
yep.
I said, no. He says, well, actually, try that. I think that's what I've been using, and I think it's better than Bolt. And he hadn't used Bolt much, but I said, okay,
Yeah.
fine. So I had spent like 4 or 5 hours on Bolt trying to build a simple application, with a data that had a database behind it and all that. And it was running into a lot of problems.
Hmm.
So then I went over to Replit and I said, okay, I'll just start over and see what it's like with Replit. And oh my God, this tool is way better. So I now Bolt may be just as good now. That was already 3 weeks ago, which is like dog years and AI
Right.
time,
Have
right?
you played with
So
Windsurf or Cursor, the IDEs?
the what? Say that again?
Windsurf or Cursor, have you played with either of those IDEs?
Yeah, I haven't. My
Okay.
team is using Cursor pretty solidly
Yeah.
um, for doing development, but I really want them to stop thinking of themselves as coders.
Right.
They're not gonna,
Uh,
that's not gonna go away, right? But they need to stop thinking like that. They need to start
yes.
thinking like they need to figure out how to be brilliant about guiding AI tools
Yep.
and
Prompters.
building AI tools. Like for example, we want to build one of our projects is to build we have several different internal projects with AI right now. One is
Mhm.
that estimation process. We've been working on this for months to build a RAG model that mimics our estimation process and actually improves on it. Um, and then we'll turn that into a SaaS product because everybody I show it to, they all say, I need that. Um, I've got a niche analysis tool, a niche analysis methodology for startups that are in the very earliest phases. And but it's a very tedious process, very metrics driven, and so we're
Mhm.
building an AI model for that. On the coding side, um, uh, where was I going with this?
Cursor?
Um, the cursor, but
They're not engineers anymore.
oh right, that was it.
Don't think like a developer.
Right. So one of the things that there's a few things we always try to automate everything internally
Yeah.
because so that we can just focus on the things that where their expertise is really needed. So uh, so with so one of the things is we build everything to be scalable. It's
Hmm.
part of our DNA. We've really pushed the envelope on this so that it's kind of like doing compliance. Everybody has to understand how they can be in compliance, whether it's SOC 2 or whether it's HIPAA or whatever it is. And there has to be a culture around that so that it just is a natural thing that's done. And the tools have to be in place to make it as easy as possible because nobody wants to
Right.
do those activities,
Of
right?
course.
The same thing with automation, with automating different steps in our process. One of those things is we in our DNA we build everything in microservices, right? So
Okay.
that we can containerize and that way we can easily build things that will run in a Lambda or Cloud Run environment if it's a function that's going to have a really wild high low demands, right? So
Hmm.
that the client can take advantage. And that's just natural for us now, but it was not easy to get there. Getting away from building components and everything being independent and being service based. But now we do it even on our MVPs. Well, at least we used to. I think that's going to change really quick. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is building an AI model for generating microservices
Nice.
instead of us building these microservices, because there's all lots of things that they always do the same that's fairly common. And then the business rules are different and when they're going to communicate and what the
So
interfaces
how
are
are
and
you
all.
building these
That
custom
can
models?
all, uh, let's have another show in 3 weeks and I can knock it out.
Okay.
Um,
Not a
uh,
problem.
the other one is that we're this just came up because starting to think, how do we reinvent ourselves? And the way we do it is we start thinking in terms of the agents
Mhm.
that we need to be able to communicate with that will do things for us. So
Right.
another one of these is stand-up agent. So every day we have our stand-ups, right, in our different teams. And it's everybody, and if they're super efficiently run, then they take 10, 15 minutes to get through.
Right.
But it's hard to run them really efficiently because people feel like it's a waste of time if they don't get this talk about, if they don't get to address the thing that, or if they didn't complete their list of all the things they did yesterday and what they're going to work on today and what their dependencies are, then the Scrum Master is saying, okay, well, it wasn't their dependency. You didn't mention that. Is that still the dependent? Anyway, so it's a lot of team time, right? And it's a good opportunity for everybody to get together, but it's not valuable time for them to talk
Right.
with each other from that. So we're thinking, why don't we build a Scrum agent or a daily stand-up agent that goes out and looks at what the stand-up was for yesterday for each person, looks at all their Jira tickets, looks at the emails and sees if there's any additional conversation that happened that may not have gotten documented, and then consolidates it all into what I did yesterday, what I'm working on next. Here's my dependencies, the new dependencies or existing dependencies. Here's the dependencies that have been addressed, and then it's presented to the person five
How are
minutes
they reading
before,
through the emails?
uh, because our emails are all in email, in Techies domain, so we can build this to do
Hmm.
that, and then they have to accept that it can see their emails,
Oh, I got you.
right?
Okay.
We haven't built this yet. This is something that just came up
I
this
love
week
the
as
idea because
one
everyone
of the
hates
things we
stand-ups.
want
It's
to do.
like, especially from like a developer engineer, like
Right,
it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to sit in this call for the next half hour, sometimes an hour. I don't know how stand-up can goes over half hour. It's crazy, but it's like you're really just listening to everyone else tell one person what they're doing, what's going on, and then you get to your point. You're like, yes, I have no roadblocks. I'm working on ticket number 1, 2, 3, 4.
right,
Yep, I'm still making progress. That's about it. Thanks. It's like
right.
there goes a half hour of the morning when I could be working on
I
something, but then
know,
someone's
I
and
know.
then someone asks you a question like, oh, blah blah
But
blah
you're
blah blah.
afraid not
Adam,
to
what do
do
you
it.
think about that? And you're like, I wasn't listening, but you don't want to say that.
I know
So
exactly.
this is
But you
ideal
don't
because
want to
then the
miss
PM
this,
can just get a list like, hey, look, here's everything first thing in the
right?
morning. You don't even have to interrupt everybody.
Exactly. But I still think that contact with the rest of the team is important. So I want to so if we can get this to work, this is going to be a kind of a high priority initiative probably in January.
Hmm.
If we can get this to work really well, and then of course it'll show you, then in those stand-ups, it's going to say, here's all the other people that with their daily stand-ups that are working on things that have some kind of dependency or impact with you. And so you just look at those and then you just check off, yes, yes, that's all correct. No, that's not correct. You miss a
Right.
dependency and add the thing,
You're
right?
more just like attestation.
Just
You're
a
identity governancing your stand-ups.
5 minutes before the stand-up. Then we get into the stand-up and we have an AI stand-up because I don't want to have this dumb stand-up stuff anymore. We've been doing it forever.
Right.
I don't want to miss it because you need that, but it doesn't need to be done in that modality. So instead, we'll have an AI stand-up. Okay, what are you doing to push our AI agenda? What new things how are you using AI in development? What are you doing that's new that you didn't do yesterday? What are you
Mhm.
planning on doing that maybe you haven't had time to start yet, but you're going to do it? And right, and why haven't you? If you haven't, maybe there's a client initiative that's preventing you from being able to even look at anything new because
Yeah.
you've got a critical deliverable. And that's fine.
So
Right.
what
So
are
as
some
long
of
as
the cool AI things you're developing for clients? Like what's kind of stuff, some of the stuff you've already done and put out there?
we have a client in healthcare, um, uh, and they basically have created an AI voice AI chat and voice nurse
Oh,
that
wow.
and their clients are hospital systems, state Medicaid. I mean, this is not like a personal nurse. It could be,
Hmm.
but that's not their market. And the reason and the big business model here, and I can say who they are. The company is Drive Health.
Hmm.
Um, I like to promote them because I just think what they're doing is great. So let's say somebody's on Medicaid. In fact, they have a contract with one of the states. I don't want to say who the state is because they're just in the beginning of implementing that. But for a state Medicaid. So the state has Medicaid, right? And the problem with people that are Medicaid is they're, more in a survival mode because they don't have a lot of money. They're probably working a couple jobs, or they're older and they don't have enough retirement money. Right? And so they're on Medicaid, and they're probably not very focused on their health needs the way that people that are better well healed typically are.
Right.
So they go to the clinic when they're sick. They get a prescription of something. They don't fill the prescription, or if they fill it, they don't take the prescription. And there's no way for Medicaid to monitor this. But what happens is then some severe thing happens as a result of them not taking care of their health properly. And now they're in the emergency room, driving healthcare costs up for the state dramatically.
Yeah.
So this nurse was going to basically say, "Did you call you that day or the next day?"
Oh,
And hi, John.
it's your mom.
This is Nurse Clara. I just want to, is this John? And she says, "Yeah, this is John. And what can I do for you?" And you can talk to this nurse just like a normal person. Um, and say, "Well, I saw that you got prescribed medication yesterday. I want to make sure that you filled that prescription." Maybe they're in a system where Nurse Claire doesn't have access to the
Yeah.
system, although she does have access to a lot of it. She may say, "I see you filled your prescription yesterday. Good job on taking care of your health. I want to make sure you're taking your meds. You're supposed to take them
Ooh,
three
can
times
it
a day.
send it
Would you like
reminders
me?"
like, hey, do you want me to send
Yeah.
you a text every time you're
And
supposed
then
to
she'll
take your
say,
antibiotic? That's cool.
"Right, did you take your med this morning?" And yes, no, I didn't. Okay, well, you really should. And here's why, because if you
Wow.
don't, you could cause you to be a
That's
whole
pretty
lot
smart.
sicker. Let me know
Proactive
if you want me to
healthcare.
explain more about this condition, right? And then say, "Would you like me to actually send you a text reminder or give you a call when it's time for you to take your meds?" And then if I do, then I need you to promise me that you'll respond, let me know that you did or not, so that I can kind of keep track of it and help you be healthier, right? And then they go, "I'm not, I don't know. It's hard for me to take my meds. I have a lot of trouble remembering. Plus, I
Yeah.
just, I'm going into bankruptcy or whatever this." And she'll start to talk with that woman. "Sorry to hear that. Sounds terrible. Tell me more about, and you can have somebody to talk to."
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, that's an example. Or somebody leaving a hospital stay and going into long-term care, like
Hmm.
somebody had a really bad accident, and they go into a long-term care facility. And that transition process, which is typically done by nurses or medical assistants, which they are so understaffed in hospitals to do this
Sure.
stuff, right? To make that phone call. Now, Nurse Claire calls and say, "Hi, I know you're transitioning from the hospital, and I just want to help make this process easier for you. Do you have a few minutes?" Right? And
Nice.
then they can ask her anything about the transition. She'll know everything about their
And is
health.
this live now? Are people using it?
This is live now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's new. It is very new, but
Yeah,
it is live now.
that's very cool. I love the idea
And
of proactive
now
healthcare.
it can make 1,000 calls, right? At the same time. Nurse Clara can be on all these calls all at the same time, whereas the hospital may have two or three people dedicated, and they don't get to those people, and they leave,
Nice.
and then those people are calling the hospital ask with questions because they don't know what's going on, things like that. So this is
That's really cool.
it's so obvious how valuable this is, right?
Right.
Um, and there's million things like this that people can conceptualize and start to execute on, um, like even the things that we're doing, for software development, like the stand up, right?
Right.
That stand up could be a voice
I
thing,
think that's
right?
awesome. I think that's
Yeah,
I love the idea of proactive healthcare. I love the idea of making monotonous things way more efficient. I think that's where AI is really going to excel in just overall world of where we're moving to is greater efficiency, more proactiveness in anything, not just healthcare, but just like being able to be more forward about stuff because it gives you more time. It's like it's the magic time giver. It can turn something where it normally takes you 4 weeks to do something, and now you're done in 4 hours. It gives you all that
yeah,
time back. So I think I love where AI is going in these realms. So I'm pretty excited.
Right. And there's
Um,
no stopping it, right?
no,
At this point.
absolutely
I
not,
mean,
good or
you got to
bad. I
embrace
mean,
it.
it's. I also think there's going to be a bad side to this.
Yeah.
Um, but I think
Like
it's
there
just
is to
it's
everything,
there.
right?
There's no way around it.
Yeah,
So it's better. You better figure out how to make the best of it. Um,
exactly.
yeah,
And ask it,
and
please, and ask it,
yeah,
please, and say thank you
yeah.
when it's
I
done
know. Start
what you
being nice
needed.
to the AI bots now, so therefore you're on the good graces later.
Well, there's two reasons to do that in my mind. One is because you actually get better answers from it when you ask it nicely.
Yeah,
There's been studies. I've been doing that from the beginning just because I'm so grateful for this, for something that was hard for me to do before. It's so easy for me to get it. I was just, I'm on it all the time, just
yeah,
conversationally, trying to debunk or debug something or figure out how to change settings in a particular application so that now I can have
yeah.
my VA publish for me on my behalf and it doesn't show her avatar picture in Medium, it shows mine. I was
Yeah.
literally just doing that before before
That's
this
awesome.
call, and it's making it effortless. But and so I say thank you because I want it to know that it gave me the right answer, right? It's just feedback. But it turns out there's apparently some studies that have shown that you actually get better results if you're articulate and
Nice
you're
to it.
not, especially if you're
Yeah.
nice.
And if you give it rewards, like I'll give you more money, I'll give you extra credits. You give it rewards, it tends to do better as well, which is weird.
Right. Oh, I haven't tried the rewards thing, but
Yeah.
the other reason to me is that when AI does take over the world and starts doing bad things, it'll
It
remember
remembers
you were
you.
really nice to it.
So let me ask you, so if people want to get a hold of you to do and talk about how custom AI software development can work for their company, what's the best way for them to reach out to you to get info and to just next steps?
Okay, yeah. So techies.com. So you can, David at techies.com, you can email me.
Okay.
Techies is spelled Tekyz for people listening to the podcast.
Yep.
For people that are maybe looking at the video, you can see it above my head, right? So just reach out to me or look me up, David Hirschfeld, Hirschfeld, on I think it's D Hirschfeld or DM Hirschfeld. I don't remember on LinkedIn. You think I would
Okay.
know that, right? But I come
I'm
right
sure
up
they'll be
if
able
you
to find
search
it.
for David Hirschfeld because
Awesome.
I'm active on LinkedIn. So
Cool, man.
or search Techies, Tekyz on LinkedIn, and then
Well,
you can
dude,
get to me that.
I'm really excited for what you're doing. You're the first person I've talked to that's actively developing cool stuff with AI in a forward approach. I'm it's very refreshing to hear, and I definitely want to take you up on that offer to talk to
Okay.
you 3 weeks from now when you got that stuff coming out. Because I'm really curious how you're building up those models, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about it at a later time.
Okay, I am so surprised you said that I'm the first person that you
I,
talked to
you know what
that's
it is?
embracing it. Yeah.
I'm just now starting to try to talk to more people working in the field. I've really been just talking it to myself for most of the time, just because it's easier. Just a quick turn the mic on. I got a half hour. I can record something.
Right.
So it's like now I'm trying to get out there and really speak with people and see what others are doing. Just kind of learn really because like I'm an old school, hacker nerd. I want to know what everyone else is doing. I loved open source stuff. I was all about the white
Right.
papers and the sharing of information because that's how, in the end, that's how we all grow and make everything better in the long run.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Right.
yeah, so I
Absolutely.
really appreciate you
I,
coming on and telling me what you're doing because this has been awesome.
yeah. Thanks. You asked me about, there was something you had asked me, but it was a funny story about about how much AI can save time.
Oh yeah,
So when ChatGPT was out, brand new, right, 2 years ago, and I was telling my wife about this the tool that's just so consumable. I mean, it was making a lot of mistakes and hallucinating a lot back then, but
yeah,
there was so much value you could get from it, and you just had to be careful that you checked what you were getting back from it,
yeah.
right?
Proofread it all for
And
sure.
the links and all that were not good. But I kept telling her, she says, yeah, 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 sounds exciting, but she's not, it wasn't really something that would just grab her attention. Anyway, about 3 or 4 months later, we had just moved the previous May. We had just purchased our house in San Diego area, and we moved from Scottsdale. I know, wrong direction. I've heard that times. Um, uh, anyway, so we just purchased a house. We're standing in the backyard, again, ChatGPT was just out for a few months. And when she asked me, she says, well, let's start planting my garden because she likes to do vegetable gardening. And her goal is to grow all our own vegetables. And she says, how many beds do you think I need? And I said, and then I was about to say, let's ask ChatGPT, but her her phone rings and it's her sister. And so she gets on the call with her sister and for about 10 minutes or so, and they're just talking about the backyard. So I said, okay, let me ask ChatGPT. And, how many beds do we need? We're two people in our early 60s. We eat a lot of vegetables, but we're not vegetarians. And we live in Vista, California. So consider the climate,
Right.
the microclimate that we have here, and the types of vegetables that would grow well here around the year. How many beds would we need to be able to do all our own bed? So it came up with a number, which I thought made sense. And I said, okay, now what should we plant in each of these beds considering companion planting? Companion planting is if you put the wrong two plants together in the same bed,
Yeah, they'll
one
leach
one will
nutrients from
grow
each
and the other,
other.
right. So
Yeah.
you have the things that are compatible, right? And so that it came up and I said, okay, now do that for every season, considering succession planting, because you don't want to put whatever broccoli in the same soil that you just took onions out of, or I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah.
gardener, so I don't know if what I just said
Yeah,
is true,
you
but
want the nutrients, you want the soil to be rebuild
right.
up a nutrient base, especially from the compost, from the decomposing ones from the previous ones and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, right. So you want compatible vegetables in the bed, and you want compatible succession for each season when you're doing a new planting from what was there previously. And then you also need companion flowers, right? Because you want flowers now that will grow and attract the bugs that will like those
Pollinate
flowers
and
more than
right.
those vegetables. But if you put the wrong flowers in, then they'll attract bugs. But then the bugs say, "Oh, I like your broccoli better than the flower," and now you've just drawn them all. So you have to get companion flowers. So I asked it that. And, as a conversation, it's giving me all these results. And I said, okay, this looks pretty good. Come up with go ahead and put this in a table by bed, by season. And it, with all of that, and it did that. And she gets off the phone and I said, take a look at this. Is this what you were thinking? And she looked at it and her mouth just hung open. And she looks at me and looks at that. And she says, that would have taken me days of research. And
Yeah.
it took 10 minutes, right?
And it probably wouldn't have been right in the end too. You've been some guesses and like, and then you find out the
Yeah.
hard way. And then you find out it's next season, okay, well, don't do that.
And she looked at it and she knows gardening. She said, this is all right. It was not hallucinating in this case.
Yep.
That was early on. I don't find it hallucinates much anymore. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's definitely way better now. And especially now
Yeah.
that they have like all the LLMs, I think the major ones for sure, like the premium models, all have agentic, browsers and search capabilities now. So
Yeah.
they're able to get a lot, like if it doesn't know, it now defaults to doing some quick research on the net to find out what's going on. So
And have you seen that new video feature in ChatGPT where you can turn your camera on while you're having a video conversation and ask, and it will look and you can ask it to give you feedback or whatever about what it sees. I just
no,
learned about
I know
that
like
today.
Gemini just released something similar too, or the Astro, Project Astro that they have that's under beta, I guess,
Yeah,
is similar
yeah.
to that.
But that literally I did not know that just recently came out like in the last, I don't know, last few days, last week.
Oh,
Because you take basically if you have the app and you have the subscription,
mhm.
$20 subscription, and you tap the speak to speak version of it, right? And it comes up and it actually asks you, give me access to your camera. And so now you're having a video conversation with it. And so I did it really quick and I said, what do you see here? And I went like this in front. And he says, oh, it looks like you have a dual monitor setup. Right. So it's like real time
Yeah.
communicating with me on whatever visually so I can be walking
Yeah.
through the market asking you questions about the various things I'm seeing on the
Well,
shelf.
that's why I love the idea of like Zuckerberg's all in on glasses being the next device. It's
Yes.
peripheral. It's going to take over phones. I firmly agree. Just because it has to be something that needs to have 24/7 video capabilities of seeing everything around it without
Mhm.
interfering. So it's either going to be something you wear as a necklace, which is going to bounce around. It's not going to have full 360 as you're turning your head.
Right.
Everyone's used to wearing glasses, sunglasses, or something already anyway. So I think that's just a natural progression. And it's something we can throw over your eyes for the augmented reality. And Google, they also just announced their XR capabilities that they're putting into place with their new Gemini 2.0 that's doing something similar as well. They have a Gemini 2.0 Fast that can do that real-time communication with live video feed, real-time translation. So like as you it's listening to someone talk to you, it's writing out the English in front of you. It's gonna be nuts. It's gonna
It's
come.
amazing to me. I know that technology's been around for a while, but not in a video setting, right? It's been
Yeah.
in the audio, and
Yep.
but yeah, and the augmented reality. So if it could do the what it's doing, but do it in where it's just putting up like prices comparison when I'm looking at it in the market,
Yep.
looking at different products, and and then maybe giving me a little star because this is a really good price for this item, or because it knows what I eat, and so it's pinging, immediately finding the things I'm looking for, so without me having to hunt, and
Yep.
then uh, or finding alternatives that are healthier for me or whatever my preferences are, right?
And you know what?
And I'm
I
seeing
love
it.
the idea, but I'm also then this is where I go down the other side of this where it scares me because from a techie side, I love new tech stuff. I'm super into it. I always want to play with it, get hands on. Like, oh, this is so cool. Check out these cool new things. Just like when the first, smartphones came out. I had Palm Pilots and stuff back in the day when those things first came out,
Yeah,
right? And cell phones. I
yeah.
had cell phones and I didn't have anyone to call. I had a pager back when I was a kid and I had no friends, but I needed a pager. That's the latest technology, right? So like I've always been
You
into it, but
just
like
enjoy being
these
with yourself so much, you just
yeah,
page
exactly.
yourself.
Page myself, funny numbers like 80085, right? So
Oh, that's funny.
then, but what my fear is, which I'm noticing a lot now, is like I notice like after I always say like post COVID, but I think it's just just happens to be the similar time frame is that people have just gotten dumber, I feel like, out in the world, just generally speaking. Like driving, no one knows how to drive because everyone's on their phone, not paying attention. People don't know anything anymore. They don't remember anything. Critical thinking seems to be out the window. When it comes to kids and learning, I think our education system is drastically undercutting our kids. I have two kids at school right now. I just had a talk with principal yesterday, and
Yeah,
I think it all stems from technology, unfortunately, because we've been so. It's like for us, it's almost become a handicap. Like you don't know anyone's phone number anymore, right? Like we used to know people's phone numbers back in the day by heart because you had to if you needed to call
you
somebody.
had to.
Now
Right,
you don't know anyone's phone number and you don't care because your phone
right.
has it. But you can extrapolate that to like everything else, right? So now it's like
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know how to drive
absolutely.
somewhere. I don't know the answer to this because it's always I'll just look it up on my phone. I'll just look it up on my phone. I have an app for that. And it's like we've become so handicapped that we don't have that critical reasoning anymore. And I think for some of us that are,
Is it we don't, or is it we have different reasoning now?
I think
Because
the smart
because
people
how
have
you
a different
navigate
reasoning.
it's how you
I think
find
the
the
dumb people have just dropped it and just completely relied on it like a crutch. I think there's two different types of people. Those that lean into it and use it as a tool to help them offload stuff that doesn't matter anymore so they can learn and adapt and focus on more cooler stuff, fun stuff, more like in-depth things, creative things. But then I think you have a vast majority of the population that are just potatoes where they just like it's the same like before. It's like, oh, you just sit in front of the couch and watch TV all day. It's like that, but extrapolated out and where they don't know how to do anything anymore because their phone does it for them now. They don't have no critical reasoning. They don't have any understanding because their phone does it for them. I just think that crowd is going to get
Yeah,
worse the more we inject more of this kind of AI and just auto reasoning and functioning and agentic world behavior, and we get robots. Like when we have fully autonomous driving, like you would the less we're kind of forcing people
so
to
I put
have
it.
to think for
Yeah,
themselves, I think is going to it's going to be great because like I was just saying that two caveats of people. The ones where it's like they're going to use that to lessen the burden of the dumb stuff so they can focus on really cool, creative, independent things. But then you're going to have a large majority of people that just be like, okay, cool. I don't have to think about anything. And they just watch TV all day, essentially, just stare at their phone for 12 hours on TikTok, trying to be a superstar on Instagram or
well,
something.
I mean, social media is its own sort of problem, right? Because they're constantly with their algorithms and your how you respond to content that you're looking at, they're constantly putting things in front of you that just it's like pulling a
Right.
slot machine, right? It just gets your alpha waves or whatever beta
Yep.
waves running. And then you find yourself an hour later, or 2 hours later, it's like, oh, you've just been 11 o'clock at night and you're still scrolling on your feed and you haven't done anything and nothing is really meaningful, but
Yeah.
it's all kind of feels good and satisfying. I mean, it's pretty rare, but I've had this experience myself, right? And I'm
Oh,
not,
everyone's
I don't
sitting
spend
there, all of
time
a sudden
on
it's like,
social.
where'd the sun go?
I know, right? It's weird. And I only say that because I make it a point not to spend much time on social media just because
Yeah.
it's so addictive, right?
Yep.
Just like I don't, and you probably half your audience is going to go, I'll never talk to him again. But I made it a point not to play online games because it's just so addictive.
Yeah,
And
I'm careful. I have an Xbox that I play. I won't put computer games on anymore. I won't make it that easy for me. I have to go downstairs, I have to turn everything on, then I can play a game if I can commit the time and my kids aren't running around driving me nuts. So it's rare now. But
yeah,
before, yeah, if it was just on my computer and I just
right.
turned this into a game PC, oh man, I just have it. I'd have work on the side to just be gaming. I wouldn't have a clue what's going on. So I purposely cannot just install them.
Right. That's so going to the whole embrace AI thing, I look at it like this, especially being in the technology world and being a custom software developer, right? I said, and I think of us as in the, top 1% in terms of like being an exceptional team in terms of the things that we do, or top
Yep,
two. I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a small number of teams that I run across that have common language with me about like the level of procedures and protocols and accountability and
yep,
things that we do. But um, uh, uh, and we got there by constantly pushing the envelope on how can we get better? How can we get what can we adopt? What can we automate? So, but now, so people, I'm gonna because I'm in San Diego, I'll use a surfing metaphor. As developers, we learn to stand up on our boards and 1 and 2 foot waves, right? And then when we start to get to be solid, like even in a team environment, right, we can start surfing 3 to 4 or 5 foot waves, right? And the exceptional teams are the ones that are comfortable paddling out to the really big waves, 8, 9, 10 foot waves, and surfing those competently, right? Um, Now we see this 100 foot rogue wave coming at us
yeah,
um, out of nowhere, right? And because it literally feels kind of like out of nowhere. And we're sitting there looking at it thinking, well, what do we do? Um, and if you just wait too long saying, what do we do? It's just going to wipe you away, right? It's
yes,
just not going to be needed anymore for anything. So the other alternatives, you paddle out to it and you get up on your board into the curl of that wave and you stand in the very tip of your board trying to stay ahead of it so it's not crashing over you. That's how I feel where we are right now. And I try to make sure everybody in my teams
yeah.
feel like that.
I think that's a great analogy because it's amazing. It could be it's super thrilling and exciting for those that are into large waves,
Yeah,
and for everyone else, that's there's also I'm sure you're familiar if you live by the ocean. The familiar saying, never turn your back on the ocean.
right.
And that's what I feel like a lot of people with AI is they have their back to AI right now. Because they're just not paying attention. They don't know, or they just don't have the understanding of really what's
They
happening. And
just nobody expects it to be as fast as it's happening, and
yeah, it's
and
crazy.
nobody realizes how fast it's happening if they're not paying attention,
Yeah, and you
right?
have to be daily. Like you literally, like, there's so much going on. I can't even keep up with it, and I'm
Yeah,
all day. I'm looking at what's coming out, what's coming. I'm trying to play with it, and you can't keep up anymore. It's impossible. There's just too
yeah,
much.
yeah. I know
Cool.
exactly.
With that, and I think that's a great place to end for us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was
So,
a really fun conversation.
yeah, but seriously, once when in 3 weeks or whenever you have that system built out, I'd love to talk to you again to see like how that's kind of going out for you and kind of what the systems were that you put behind that. I think that'd be great to talk about.
Okay, that'd be
Um,
awesome. Yeah, I don't know if
yeah,
it'll be 3 weeks, but I mean
whenever. Yeah,
that
no,
was
I'm not gonna
tongue in
hold you
cheek.
to
But like the end of
it.
January, sometime between the end of January and end of February, we'll
Yeah,
have
just hit me up.
really
You know,
significant things to show. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I really appreciate your time. It's really fun talking to you. I wish you the best of luck, and
yeah.
hey, I hope you stay ahead of that wave.
Thanks. Oh yeah, and check out my new podcast, Scaling Smarter. It'll be on Apple Podcasts and all
Cool.
the major podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Nice. Scaling smarter. Very nice. Awesome, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thanks.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
me too.
Best of
I
luck.
really appreciate it. All right.
Thanks. Have a good one. Bye. Nidus has just created the first iOS app made exclusively for identity management professionals. It's called Nidus Breachcast, and you can download it now. It's amazing. We have real-time updates of all the latest breaches that are occurring, CVEs as they come out real-time, really pertaining just to identity management. We have media that's going on this podcast. We're going to be bringing in a lot more others as well. And we even have a complete vendor list of all the identity management vendors and all their products, so you can find out exactly where to download their software, all the documentation. And what's even more awesome is an identity management glossary. All those crazy words and acronyms that we can never remember, they're all listed in there for you. No ads, just pure information to make your life simple.